When it comes to South African politicians, Mmusi Maimane is a man at the top of his game. He's currently the leader of the opposition in the National Assembly, a position he's held since May last year. He's the chief critic of the government in South Africa, particularly President Jacob Zuma, and he certainly had a lot to get his teeth into in recent months. The president is under fire over what's known as the Nkandla scandal. An estimated 52.9 million rand of taxpayers' money was spent on a security upgrade to the president's private residence, an upgrade that included installing a swimming pool, a hen house and an amphitheatre. I'm delighted to welcome to Arise News South Africa's leader of the opposition, Mmusi Maimane. Mmusi, it seems to me that scandal has been swirling around President Zuma for some time, but it's all open to speculation. Here is a definite case where we know legally what he could claim, what he was entitled to, and we know what he did claim. So it seems to me there could be some fairly clear-cut evidence.
Absolutely, and it's great to be here with you this morning. The total cost of the project was 256 million rands. What we believe is that of that, the initial brief, like would be for any president, that when you come into office, a security assessment is done so that the right installations are done. What in fact happened here is building a presidential palace at the taxpayer's expense. And what we've calculated is that 52.9 million rands was what is undue benefit. So it was for things exactly as you've highlighted: swimming pools, mood lighting. And here we've enumerated it. We're saying the president must in fact refund the taxpayer that amount, and the ministry that built him this presidential house must account for the rest of the money.
So was there any due process in place anyway? You said there needed to be an assessment, which is what normally happens. Did that assessment actually take place?
Yeah, the South African police did an initial assessment. They costed the project back in 2008 at about 27 million rands. So how it escalated to 256 million rands tells you the grand scale of corruption that took place in this instance. Our greatest challenge here is that the issue is centered around the president is an illustrator of how the institutions of government fail in being able to effect accountability, look after South Africa's taxpayers' money. But the president himself, who claimed over a few occasions in South Africa that he did not know what took place at his own house, in fact tells me that this was a leader who failed to protect the resources of the people of his country.
So what you're actually saying is, although you can pin down this very large discrepancy into one situation that directly affects the presidency, actually institutions across the board in South Africa are affected.
Absolutely. You know, even now in the prosecution of the issue, the president must pay fringe benefit tax on the amount. And so what the president then decided to do is appoint his own people in that space. So we are saying institutional capacity in South Africa, the Parliament of South Africa, must hold the president to account, and he can't collapse that either. It's about building the strength in institution, making sure that the president accounts. But as I highlight, the fact that this one particular scandal is only 1/100th of the total amount of wasteful expenditure that takes place. What we've got to get to is building a nation where institutions are strong so that never a president can be able to arise and be able to achieve such grand corruption as it
Are you actually saying that you can't do that while President Zuma's in charge? It's impossible.
I'm not convinced President Zuma is the right leader of South Africa. I'm in fact certain that his party has in fact failed to build the institutional capacity. The work that our party is involved with is strengthening that and building that going forward. And so the long-term goal is about making sure that as democracy is strengthened in South Africa, power can move from one party to the next and strengthen the institutions.
Do you think that the Nkandla scandal is big enough and strong enough to actually push him out of power?
The people of this country are angry. The people of South Africa are very angry about it. And certainly we believe as a key issue, not only because of its symbolism, but as to what else it means, the people of this country are angry enough to say we need to see new leadership and we need to see new government in place.
You've laid criminal charges against President Zuma. What's happened there?
That's another difficulty, is that the Ministry of Police have been evasive about giving me direct answers about when they'll be able to continue the investigation. So I have requested for them to be able to say every man in South Africa must be equal before the law. They must be able to investigate the president. But we've also gone to court to request that the initial 738 charges of corruption and racketeering be charged against President Zuma so that ultimately he can have what he's asked for all along, which is his day in court.
So, and you've also, we were talking earlier about the actual figures, you have calculated how much the president must repay to the state. Is there any chance that you're going to get that money back, though?
It's going to be a long ask, but as I sit here, the Parliament of South Africa will consider a report about his total liability to the state. The Ministry of Police will table that report. We wanted to put that figure forward to say 52.9 million rands is what we believe it must be. The Ministry of Police cannot set a bar below that. We think it's a lot more than that, and the president must be able to account. If he's a president who says when the determination was done, he must pay back some of the money. And if he fails to do that, we have to rely on the judiciary to ensure that he pays back some of the money.
We've got this specific example of his private residency, but there are also far wider allegations, as far as you're concerned, of fraud, corruption and racketeering. How deep do they go?
Well, this issue started 7 years ago, before the president came into office. And in fact, that's why he was dismissed as deputy president back then, if you can recall. And equally so, that he managed to change the head of the National Prosecuting Authority to make sure that those charges were never in fact laid against him. What we're simply asking is that if allegations of that nature are before us, and they're still allegations, there are charges that were put against the president, they must be reinstated, he must face in day in court, and he must disprove those. As he must disprove his own role and his own culpability in issues around Nkandla, he must be given the same opportunity to do so. So on the 16th of June, we'll hopefully have a final verdict that says the president can be charged, and we hope that subsequent to that, he can be able to account to the people of this country about...
Once he's charged, surely there is a situation where he can't really continue functioning, even in practical terms, as the leader of South Africa.
Well, at that point, he'd have to go through a court battle, and whatever the verdict looks like. My investment in this issue is to say, when the South African law and constitution was written in place, it both had the spirit and the legislative aspect about it. I would hope in the spirit of good constitutionalism, the president would be able to say, in fact, I accept that this is my challenge now, and he must do the right thing, do the honorable thing. But if he fails to do that, we have to rely on the courts, and we'd hopefully be able to get a conviction out of the courts.
He's been in power now for less than a year. And it seems, to just press you on this one point, it seems inconceivable that he could go the whole term while this scandal rages on.
I wish that wasn't always so easily conceivable, but in fact it is possible. The president has been on this matter trying to avoid court and court charges for years and years on end. This is his second term. He spent the first 5 years delaying. He's got a bottomless pit of taxpayers' money that he can afford legal charges. And South African law makes it so that you're innocent until proven guilty. So he can claim and play that over a long period of time, depending on how long he can delay the scandal.
But as this rolls on, surely the South African people are becoming more and more disillusioned. I mean, you are the opposition party, of course you would say that, but give me a sense, a characterisation of what the mood is amongst the South African people about these kind of scandals rolling on and on.
South Africans are angry. South Africans can see that this is not right. But what is beautiful about the people of South Africa is that they're the ones who, when the apartheid government was at its height, they made a decision to say we could vote out this government, led by great leaders like President Nelson Mandela. What can happen now is that the one level of accountability that is a leveler for everybody is that when people are dissatisfied with one government, they can vote it out. That's why President Zuma's ANC isn't governing the Western Cape, it isn't governing Cape Town, and certainly will be losing a lot more metros at next year's polls, and hopefully in 2019 will have a significant dent blown to them.
Well, when you consider the sometimes heroic legacy of the ANC, it's pretty sad that it's come to this stage, really, isn't it?
It is indeed. It is indeed. I mean, as a movement of such great heroes and leaders, to reduce the sacrifices of so many South Africans to the benefit of a few self-serving individuals is a real tragedy. But equally so, democracies must go through that. African countries have shown that, in fact, when there's such tensions, change can take place. So I'm more optimistic about South Africa, not out of a place of despair. I think that this crisis will be one that will really institutionalize democracy, that if you're dissatisfied with one government, another can come on board.
And what about you? Do you surely must have presidents to be the ambitions to be the next leader of South Africa?
Well, it's I really love South Africa, and I'll serve the people of that country, of South Africa, in any capacity I can. If one day they elect me to be president, I'll certainly serve them in that capacity.
Okay. Mmusi Maimane, thank you so much for joining me here on Arise News.
Much appreciated.